Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has confirmed he'll meet with his counterparts from the UK, France and Germany, known as the E3, in Geneva on Friday. It will be the first face-to-face diplomatic meeting since Israel started its attack on Iran's military and nuclear sites. Right, well, joining me on set is Mr. Martin Griffiths. He's the Director of Mediation Group International and also the former UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs. Thank you for joining us once again here in the studio, Mr. Martin. Now, we're talking here about this first attempt at any talks here between Iran and Western countries, three countries, in fact, the UK, France and Germany. What do diplomatic talks like that achieve so early on in this stage when there are clear threats and an escalation from both sides of this conflict?
I think it's a very specific opportunity and very well timed, in fact, for that meeting to happen tomorrow in Geneva. Not because they're going to solve the problem, not actually only because they're going to make talks happen with Iran, which is symbolically very important, but because they should be able to shine a light as a result even of a one-day meeting on possible alternatives to war and what Iran might do and what concessions Iran might make and how it will cap its program of enrichment and so forth. And making that both public and discreetly available to the other side is, I think, going to add to a specific trend that you will have noticed better than me, which is to say that this war ain't going to be easy. And I think President Trump is finding that out by the hour now. And so a diplomatic solution, as evinced by those talks tomorrow, could be very, very important.
Do you think the US President Donald Trump is sort of winging it, waiting to see how people are going to react, how countries are going to react, how his support base is going to react to make such a massive decision?
I do think so, and I think it's very easy to forget that, certainly in my case, to forget that actually he's done that a lot in Ukraine, in tariffs and other matters, immigration and so forth. And we're seeing it again play out today. So the horror of the last few days of the threats, regime change, massive attacks on Iran's infrastructure, not just nuclear, maybe that's a ploy. I mean, we can't go by that. But that's why tomorrow's meeting is useful, because it kind of sets out a clear alternative. And he often has a record of rushing to an alternative way of making a deal. A diplomatic deal is always more messy, less efficient in some ways, but it's safer. And in this case, with all the worries that you've been alluding to in the program about what the messiness of this war, the fact that there are all these attacks on nuclear sites, and so far we haven't had a nuclear war, which is a miracle, I think, that tells us very clearly this is going to be the time for diplomacy.
As someone who's been in the diplomatic circle for such a long time, with so much experience when it comes to negotiating, does it concern you the level that Israel is willing to take of disregarding international bodies, whether it's the IEIA, whether it's the UN? I mean, it's got to a point where Israel seems to be able to do what it wants as long as it has US backing.
Yeah, it's kind of playing rogue, isn't it? And we've seen it so visibly. You've covered it so well in the occupied territories in Gaza and the West Bank. And it's a trend that is noticed around the world and replicated and copied elsewhere. And there seems to be no comeback for it. I mean, the war in Sudan is a great illustration. Why not go to war? Because we see it happening elsewhere. Don't worry, there'll be no comeback to that. And so what Israel is doing in occupied Gaza, but also now in even more in Iran, which is a full-blown war, is terrible for the state of the world. And I think the Europeans are worried about that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Martin Griffiths, for your time.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.